The arrival music of the negotiator. The Galactic Council had stood for 3,000 years as the supreme authority of the known universe, 12 species, each more warlike than the last, had carved their territories through blood and fire. The council chambers floated in the void. Between stars, a massive station. Representatives gathered to discuss treaties, territorial disputes, and the occasional declaration of war. Every species that joined had done so through military might, proving their worth in battle. This was the way of the galaxy, and none questioned it. Commander Zelthos of the VRN Empire sat in his designated seat, his forearms crossed over his armored chest. The VR went in were apex predators from a world of endless storms, and they had claimed 17 systems through sheer brutality. Next to him sat Ambassador Krell, a crystalline being whose people had melted entire planets to expand their domain. Around the circular chamber, 10 other species waited, each representing civilizations built on conquest and strength. Emergency session had been called because of troubling reports. A new species had been detected, one that called themselves humans. They had emerged from a small yellow star system on the edge of explored space, and scouts reported they possessed faster than light travel. According to protocol, the Council would send a war fleet to test these humans, and if they proved worthy through combat, they might earn a single system to call their own. But something strange had happened. The war fleet never engaged. Instead, a single human vessel had simply appeared at the Council station's doorstep, requesting an audience. No weapons charged, no shields raised, just a polite transmission asking to speak. This had never happened before. Species didn't request audiences, they demanded recognition through force. The chamber doors opened with a hiss, and every representative tensed, ready for anything. What walked through those doors would change the galaxy forever, though none of them knew it yet. Single human entered. He was small compared to most species present, standing barely 2 m tall. He wore no armor, carried no visible weapons, and walked with a relaxed stride that seemed almost careless. His skin was a dark brown, his hair cropped short, and he carried a simple briefcase in one hand. Behind him, no soldiers marched, no war machines rolled, just one man in his briefcase. He stopped at the center of the circular chamber, looking around at the gathered representatives with calm, dark eyes. Then he smiled, a gesture that showed his teeth. Several species interpreted this as a threat display and reached for their weapons. The human raised his empty hand in a peaceful gesture and spoke through the translation device on his collar. His voice was clear and steady. Greetings, members of the Galactic Council. My name is Ambassador David Chin, and I represent the United Earth Alliance. We come not to fight, but to offer something far more valuable than conquest. Zelthos slammed one of his massive fists on his console. You dare appear before us without proving your worth in battle? Leave now, human, before we vaporize your pathetic ship. Chin didn't flinch. Instead, he opened his briefcase and pulled out a small device, setting it on the floor. Holographic display sprang to life, showing images and data streams. I understand your confusion, Shin said calmly. Every species here earned their place through warfare, but we humans discovered something your civilization haven't considered. Cooperation is more Powerful than conquest, laughter echoed. Through the chamber, Ambassador Krell's crystalline form vibrated with amusement. Cooperation weakness, you mean? The strong take what they want, Qin nodded. As if expecting this response, let me ask you something. How much resources do you spend on military forces? How many of your people die in territorial disputes? How much time is wasted rebuilding what war destroys? The chamber fell silent. These were not questions anyone had seriously considered. War was simply the nature of existence. Now Qin continued, activating different images. Imagine if those resources went into technology, medicine, art, and exploration instead. Imagine if 12 species worked together, rather than against each other. Combined knowledge and capabilities would advance every civilization by centuries within a single generation. Fantasies, growled Zeltho. Species compete, this is natural law. Qin smiled again, but this time it was different, almost knowing. Is it, or is it simply the only way you've known? He pressed another button and the hologram changed to show Earth history. Images of humans at war flashed by thousands of years of conflict, and then something shifted. The images showed cooperation. Nations working together, achieving things no single country could have done alone. We humans fought each other for millennia, Qin explained. We nearly destroyed ourselves multiple times, but we learned, we discovered that working together made us stronger than fighting ever could, and now we want to share that lesson with the galaxy. And how? Asked the Serpentine representative, her tongue flicking with curiosity. Do you propose to prove this wild theory? Qin closed his briefcase and looked directly at each representative in turn. We don't conquer systems, we offer partnerships. We start with one world, any world you choose. Will help them with technology, medicine, infrastructure, asking nothing in return except the freedom to demonstrate our methods. If we fail, you lose nothing. If we succeed, everything changes. The chamber erupted in debate, species arguing in dozens of languages. This went against everything they knew, everything they had built their civilizations upon. Yet something about this confident human made them pause. Perhaps it was curiosity, or perhaps it was exhaustion from endless wars. Finally Zelthos spoke. You claim cooperation conquers better than weapons. We shall test this. The colony world of Ni 3 struggles with famine and disease. Our war fleets have no solution for such problems. Go there. Human, try your cooperation. We shall watch with great interest. Qin bowed slightly, his smile never wavering. Thank you, you won't regret this decision. As the human left the chamber, the representatives sat in uncomfortable silence. They had just allowed an improved species to attempt something no one had tried before. Some thought it foolishness, others wondered if perhaps, just perhaps, the galaxy was about to change in ways they couldn't imagine. The conquest had begun, but not with weapons. It had begun with a simple briefcase and a revolutionary idea. The revolution of ideas. 6 months after Qin left the council chambers, reports began flooding in from Ni 3. Commander Zelthos read them with growing disbelief, his 4 hands trembling slightly as he scrolled through the data. This couldn't be real. It violated everything he understood about how the universe worked. The famine was over. The disease was eliminated, but that wasn't the shocking part. An emergency Council session was called, and this time every representative attended. The holographic display showed live footage from NEA-3, and what they saw defied all expectations. The human ship still orbited the planet, but it hadn't fired a single shot or dropped a single soldier. Instead, hundreds of small shuttles moved between ship and surface, and the planet had transformed. Ambassador Chin appeared on the central display, broadcasting from NEA-3's capital city. Behind him, the native population moved about freely, not as conquered subjects but as people engaged in purposeful activity. They were smiling. Honorable council members, Shin began, I want to show you what cooperation achieves. The camera panned across the city. New buildings rose alongside old ones, their design blending human engineering with local architecture. Fields that had been barren now grew with crops. Using agricultural technology humanity had shared freely. We brought medicine, Shin continued, walking through a medical facility where human doctors worked alongside native healers, each learning from the other. We brought farming techniques, water purification systems, and educational resources, but more importantly, we brought partnership. Native leader stepped into frame, a being with 6 legs and compound eyes. Through the translator, her voice rang clear. The humans asked what we needed, then helped us build it ourselves. They didn't conquer us, they didn't demand obedience. They taught us, worked beside us, and treated us as equals. For they first time in our history, we have hope. Ambassador Krell's crystalline form flickered with confusion. But what do you gain, human? Where is your profit? Your territorial claim? Chen's expression grew serious. We gain something more valuable than territory. We gain allies, friends, and trading partners. Nava 3 now produces medicines that our scientists find fascinating. Their musicians create art that moves human souls. Their engineers think in ways we never considered. Cooperation isn't about taking, it's about growing together, and everyone benefits. Over the following months, something unprecedented happened. Other worlds, seeing NEA-3's transformation, began requesting human assistance, not demanding, not threatening, but asking. And humanity responded each time with the same approach: partnership, knowledge sharing, and mutual respect. The Varan Empire watched as colony worlds they had conquered through force began prospering under human cooperation. Methods, rebellions they had fought for decades simply stopped because the colonized populations no longer wanted independence. They wanted the partnership model humanity offered. Commander Zelthos found himself in an impossible position. Military doctrine had no answer for this. You couldn't fight an enemy that brought medicine instead of weapons, offered teaching instead of subjugation. His war fleet sat idle while human civilian ships transformed world after world. A year after Chen's initial appearance, the Galactic Council convened again. This time the mood was different. Representatives who had laughed at cooperation now looked uncertain. Their military might seem suddenly obsolete. Chen stood before them once more, but he wasn't alone. Behind him stood representatives from 47 worlds, each one transformed by human partnership. They weren't conquered subjects, they were advocates eager to share their experiences. We claim no territory, Chen said quietly. We sign no treaties of dominance, but I think you'll find that humanity has achieved what your war fleets never could. We've united worlds, not through fear but through hope. The Serpentine ambassador, who had been skeptical from the start, spoke with newfound respect. You have conquered. Without conquering, you have claimed the galaxy without firing a shot. How do we, who built everything on strength, adapt to this new reality? Qin smiled warmly. You join us not as subordinates but as partners. Imagine what the Vin could build if they redirected their military resources toward creation instead of destruction. Imagine if Krell's people used their planet-melting technology for terraforming instead of war. Every species here has unique gifts. Together, we could build something magnificent. Zeltho stood slowly, all four arms spread wide. It was a VR in gesture of submission, something he never thought he would make. I have commanded fleets that destroyed entire civilizations. I thought this made me powerful, but I see now that I was simply efficient at ending things. You humans, you create, you build, you grow. That is true power. One by one, the council members stood, each making their species gesture of respect and acceptance. The age of conquest was ending. A new era was beginning. 5 years later, the Galactic Council had transformed into the Galactic Cooperative. Military fleets still existed, but primarily for exploration and defense against natural disasters. Resources once spent on weapons now funded schools, hospitals, and research facilities. Trade flourished between species that had been enemies for centuries, and humanity sat at the center of it all, not as rulers, but as the catalyst that had shown everyone a better way. They had conquered the galaxy without firing a shot, armed only with compassion, knowledge, and an unshakable belief that cooperation was stronger than any weapon. Ambassador Qin stood on the observation deck of the council station, looking out at the stars. A young human intern approached, fresh from Earth and eager to learn. Sir, the intern asked, how did we do it? How did we change an entire galaxy? Qin smiled, remembering that first day when he walked into the council chambers alone. We showed them what they had forgotten, that strength isn't about who can destroy the most, but who can build the most. That victory isn't about conquest, but about connection. We reminded the galaxy that the most powerful force in the universe isn't a weapon at all. What is it? The intern asked. Hope. Qin replied simply. The hope that tomorrow can be better than today, that strangers can become friends, and that the greatest achievements come not from standing alone, but from standing together. Galaxy had been conquered, but not by force. It had been conquered by an idea. And ideas once spread are impossible to defeat. Humanity had claimed the stars, not through might but through the simple revolutionary act of caring about others and showing there was a better way forward. The age of endless war was over. The age of endless possibility had begun, and it all started with one man, one briefcase, and the courage to try something